Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to yet another episode review video for last night's episode of The Walking Dead, this being Season 8, Episode 9, the mid-season premiere entitled Honor. Now this was hard to watch. This was hard to watch. It was a little easier to watch than the Season 7 premiere, that being so brutal and everything, in terms of brutality. In terms of, your feeling for a character and stuff like that, I think it was much harder because Carl, is much closer to the audience, in terms of the comic book, counterpart to him than, Glenn was, or than Abraham was, because we all know that Abraham and Glenn are both now dead in the comic as well. Their counterparts are long gone. With Carl's story is still living on in the comics right now, guys. It's still going on. There's a lot of stuff that came after the war with Carl that I was really looking forward to seeing in the TV show, and unfortunately that is not going to happen anymore. So spoilers, of course, for this episode. It's an episode review. You can't really review an episode unless you spoil it. Carl is dead. There was a lot of speculation going around and stuff that he was going to somehow survive the bite mark. A lot of theories were going around, like the walker had dentures, or it was a whisper. Carl was just one of those people that were immune to the virus, because there's always like one or two in every single plague outbreak. Somebody's always immune, right? There was a lot of theories going around, that it was a whisper, and all that stuff. All that stuff really kept us our hope alive, if you will. And unfortunately, that was shut down this episode. It really was. It was shut down this episode. It was tough to watch. Most of it was spent in the sewer. Most of the episode was spent in the sewer with, Carl and Rick and all that. But there were parts of the episode, not necessarily lighter, but just different parts of the storyline where we don't really have to worry about Carl too much. Of course, Carol and Morgan trying to save Ezekiel. He was trapped in the kingdom, obviously. And he was going to die. He was going to be taken to Negan, and obviously was going to be executed. So there was that part of the episode. There is some relief through it. It's not just like an hour and a half long of just us watching Carl die. But throughout the episode, we've seen numerous things. The opening montage was great. It was absolutely outstanding. It was a great performance from Chandler, I have to say. I'm looking forward to see what he's doing as an actor in the coming years and stuff like that, in other TV shows and in other movies and stuff like that, because he's really developed. He didn't necessarily know how to act very well at the beginning of The Walking Dead, or like even through the middle, but around season 7, season 8, this is where we really get to see him shine, especially where he gets this death scene and the death sequence, and this whole basically episode and last episode as well, him just being a badass and going through these streets of Alexandria, just outsmarting the saviors, all that good stuff. And it was a lot of fun to watch. It really was. And I'm glad that it happened, but at the same time, now we don't get to see any of the cool storylines that have happened in the comic books after the war in the TV show, like stuff with Lydia and the Whispers. Of course, you guys fans of the comic book know exactly what I'm talking about. I was looking forward to that storyline, but that's not going to happen now. It's probably going to happen in some sort of sense, probably with just another character, though, instead of Carl, that being. A lot of the episode was them saying goodbye to him and him saying goodbye to his family and trying to leave this legacy, behind as he died, trying to leave this legacy and this thought and this theory and this belief and this dream of his, that he wants to become a reality. He wants Rick to grow old. He wants the community to live together and rebuild Alexandria and all this. Okay, so you guys know at the start of this season, and throughout the season in general, there's been what we thought at the time were flash forwards, right? To old man Rick after the war, stuff like that. Judith was around, but these were actually ending up being Carl's dreams. He brought it into context, basically saying, I've seen what the future can look like, and I want this to become a reality. And the montage sequence, stuff like that goes on, and it's looking real good. It's looking real nice. That's his dream for the future, and essentially near the end, Rick basically tells him, I promise you, I'm going to make this future real. I'm going to make it come true. I'm going to make this real for you. And he wants to honor him, which is the exact title of the episode. He wants to honor his wishes, Siddiq, for example, as well. He wants to honor Carl because Carl did what he did to save Siddiq's life and brought him into this community when nobody else wanted to. He basically said, Carl said to Judith near the end, actually, too, that sometimes the kids have to show their parents the way because they don't always see it. And, just honoring that belief, Siddiq wants to honor him, after he's gone. And within this future, Siddiq is a doctor as well. So there could be definitely useful things for Siddiq, to do and honor him. And that a part of that is kind of like me thinking, maybe they're going to do some of this storyline with Siddiq that was supposed to happen to Carl. I'm not sure if that's, the way they're going, but he really made it seem like he wanted to honor him. And I mean, why wouldn't he? He saved his life, he risked his life, and he gave his life to not only save Siddiq, but to just get him there as part of the group, right? And anyway, it's like I said, it's kind of hard to watch, if you're really into the show, and you're really into Carl, you like Carl. And funny thing is, like, a lot of people, like, a long time ago, were constantly calling to kill Carl off. They always thought he was kind of annoying. Nobody ever really thought that he was a key part of the storyline. But the hardcore fans, I feel like we've always liked him. Or at least I did. There was some definite points where you could be like, why? Why would you make that decision? Stuff like that. But it's all part of his journey, right? It's all part of his journey. And to see that come to an end in this episode was hard to watch, but at the same time, it was really nice to watch. Everything that he's gone through. We even heard him call back to, like, the prison and, the farm and back in Atlanta and stuff like that, and reference some things that we haven't heard referenced in quite some time. Him actually even going back to say, I can't believe how killing became so easy. Back in the prison when we were under attack, a kid had a gun and he was giving it up. He was laying the gun down and I shot him, and I can't believe how easy that was. We had a little psycho killer right there, but you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just really nice to watch him, grow up in a sense, but at the same time, in order for that to happen, I feel like he ultimately had to go through this. At least in the TV show version, the comic book version, not so much. He has grown up. There is still a few things that he hasn't learned, but this Carl feels like a more refined Carl, if you will, than even the comic book version right now. The comic book version will get there, and ultimately he will stay alive, but this was a much faster change, if you will. He went through a lot of the things that he went through in the comic book after the war, just not encountering, like, Lydia and all that, right? But he went through that sooner here in the TV show. Not necessarily the storyline, obviously. We didn't see any of that. But in terms of what the character's feeling and what he's going through and what he wants, for the future, right? So anyway, that's basically it. It's an overall review. I don't really want to spoil too much, to be honest with you guys. I don't want to recap it and tell you everything that happened. But Ezekiel, well, you just watch it. Just watch it. It was a lot of fun seeing Carol and Morgan go in and rescue Ezekiel. They're very badass. Morgan is going through his whole clear sequence again, just being crazy, stuff like that. Just getting addicted to killing, and Carol's there as well, but she doesn't necessarily she's not her pacifist self, but she's also not like hardcore killer Carol either, you know what I mean? She knows her limits now. It's like a good balance, and hopefully that will last through and past the war, and not just be like, I had to be like this to get the war over with, and now I'm back to being pacifist Carol and, all that bullshit again. Hopefully not, because, we all love Carol, and we want to see her, be badass, but we want to see her hold it together as well, right? So anyway, Yeah, I mean, at a point there, they got Carl up out of the sewer. Everybody, like, the Saviors left. They stopped attacking and stuff like that because they thought they left. And everybody got up. They basically went to the hilltop. Rick, Carl, and Michonne stayed behind because they basically couldn't move Carl. He wasn't going to make the trip. And they ended up moving him up from the sewer to, I believe, the church. Which was the only building that wasn't burnt down. It was destroyed in the sense of like them going in there and destroying it, but it wasn't burned down. So I don't necessarily know if that's any show of respect by the Saviors or not, or whether they just didn't burn it down on accident. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure, but either way, they moved him in the church, and that's when a lot of this conversation got had between Rick and Carl, saying that I've seen the future. I need this. I want this to be true for you. I'm not going to be there, but I want you to be there. I want this future for you. Putting down your gun and being the person that doesn't necessarily want to fight and just live together like you were at the prison. He bring up a couple of things, like he brought in an entire group from Woodbury. They were trying to kill them, and he brought them in, and he lived with them. He put down his gun, and you can be that man again. Basically exclaims a need to be. So I think what's ultimately going to come from this is that future, because Rick not only promised him, he straight up told him that he was going to get it done. He was going to make that future real. And, Rick being the father that he is, he will honor his son's wishes. But he has to get through this war, And I think one thing coming from this altercation here is a part of the comic book storyline that we're not going to get quite into, but it's going to fill a gap. I think it's going to fill a little bit of a gap because in the comic book there was a moment where Rick decided not to do something, but instead take the high road, and there was never necessarily an explanation for that. But Carl asking him to do it before he died would provide an explanation. Now, whether that be a good enough reason to kill Carl off, I don't think so. You know what I mean? I'd much rather see him stick around and do his whole comic book thing with Lydia and the Whisperers and all that good stuff that's coming up, but it's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? We're going to have to get over it, and I'm going to keep watching the show, as will a lot of people. I hope you guys will too. I know you're probably a little upset. I am too. I don't want Carl to die, but we do get to still see and live through his journey in the comic books. That's one thing we can take away from it. If you're a fan of the comic books, you still have Carl. If you only like the TV show, I recommend you start getting into the comic books. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Oh, wait, hold on. One more thing. Near the end of it, Carl basically started grabbing his gun and basically exclaimed that he wanted to end it himself. And Rick and Michonne honored his wishes by waiting outside, and we heard the silencer go off, and Rick basically broke down, and near the end of the episode, we get to see a little another flash forward, but it probably is in Carl's dream. This is where I start to not necessarily see the difference between a flash forward or Carl's dream, right? I don't know if this is still Carl's dream because now Carl's dead, right? So I'm not too sure. But near the end of it, we get to see Judith walking in a garden up to Negan. Negan turns around and says, "Hey there, pumpkin," or something like that, and that basically implies that Negan's going to be a part of that future. I'm not going to say anything from the comic books, but definitely plausible. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. It was a great episode. It really was. I recommend you guys go watching it over. I'm going to be watching it over a couple of times probably this week because it was very good. It was very emotional, if you will. It didn't make me cry or anything. Not much makes me cry, but Logan made me cry. All right, so I'm going to be watching it over just because, I was kind of, at the time when I was watching it, my mind was basically on Carl the entire time, so I didn't necessarily get to fully pay attention to everything that happened, even though I think that I basically seen and got everything. I don't really think I missed anything in the episode. But in terms of secrets and hidden little spots in there and stuff that I might have missed when my mind was elsewhere, I am gonna watch it again, and I recommend you guys doing the same because it was a great episode. It really was. It was a great send off for Carl. As much as I don't want him to go, This was one hell of a way to do it. At the end of the episode, also, we get to see Rick kind of sitting next to a tree. Blood all over his hand. His hand's not cut off or anything, but blood is all over his hand, so that leads me to believe something is going to happen at the end of the season. I'm not going to say what, because it is in the comic books, so if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you're fans of the comic books, you know what I'm talking about. And, I'm excited, you know what I mean? I'm excited. It's unfortunate that, Carl had to go right now, but I'm going to keep watching. I'm in for the long haul. I've spent 8.5 years so far on this, and loving it every single year with every bit of my being completely addicted to this show, and I'm not going to give up on it just because one thing differentiated from the comic books. It's very good source material, and I'm going to keep reading that. But I'm also going to keep watching the show. They're two different paths, I think, at this point. That's how I'm looking at it. That's how I'm going to keep going on, right? They're two different paths. One path, Carl's in it. Probably going to be in it near the end as well. And probably going to be the end of it. The other path, I think it's much more short term. But I also think it's going to be badass. I really do. I think it's going to be great on its own. And I can't wait. Guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next video. If you guys tune into my streams or anything like that, or like Fortnite or whatever, then make sure you guys do tune into my streams. I stream basically every day at like 3 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you guys go ahead and tune in. I'm going to render this video and then upload it, and then after that, I'm basically going live. So thank you all so much for watching, and subscribe, guys, if you haven't already. My predictions go up on Thursdays. My reviews go up on Mondays. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.